Well, it's nice to see, and I tell you why, because everybody seems to love you and what you do. You're one of those people that just seems to be able to put things on paper that people are interested in. I write things not interested.
Well, thank you. Let me read them. I'll give you some tips. That's very kind of you. But yeah, I work hard and I enjoy what I do. So.
Have you always been interesting and interested? Because you seem the kind of person that is curious and you're able to turn that into things that other people are interested in. When did that start?
I suppose that's a natural born writer, isn't it? I do think writers are kids that never grew up because, you know, when you're a kid, you don't think twice about sitting down and writing a story. It's natural. Kids make up stories naturally all the time. Somewhere along the line when you're 13 or 14, it stops happening. And I think writers never do. And obviously I mean that in terms of like Doctor Who, in terms of inventing monsters and spaceships, but I think writing full stop, whether you're observing human nature or just thinking about people. At the end of the day, writing is just thinking about people, and we all do that.
Is it fun being you? Because I'd find it frustrating when you've created something like Doctor Who, which is the talk of the town, and it has been now for years, but you're not the one that everybody knows because you give that to other people.
Oh, that's natural. That's brilliant. That's smart. I mean, I get a bit of recognition because you do these behind-the-scenes documentaries like Confidential and stuff like that. And in Cardiff, where we make Doctor Who, and a lot of kids visit Cardiff because we make Doctor Who there, and I get recognised now and again, which is absolutely lovely, especially when it's a child who's just full of their favourite Daleks and Cybermen, and they talk about the stories and stuff, which is joyous. But apart from that, it's sort of a writer's lot really to be invisible, and it's not what it's about really. It's I think actors are mad. Even the loveliest actors are completely balmy to want to put their face on screen or on stage and to be the front line. I genuinely think it's quite a mad and scary thing to be an actor. And writers are literally people who sit and write and lock themselves away. So I find being recognised anywhere very odd, and there's not much of it anyway. We're
going to talk about your life and career and find out how you are the man you are today. And it's interesting looking through your bio and researching you that actually you did want to be the star originally, and you did try out in front of the camera, and it didn't work for you.
I did one. I got a job as a play school presenter. I auditioned, I got given an equity card and went in and did one episode, and literally I walked out the studio and I said I'm never doing that again, because by that stage I'd already worked behind the scenes on television. And I knew I was on the wrong side of the camera. And I was rather good, if I may say. I was all right. I did it. And it was fun and lovely people. But literally, and I was on the dole at the time. I went back to being on the dole because I just thought, I am not going to sit in front of the camera. I'm not going to be that person. I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I'm not passionate enough about it. I found it weird.
Because it's an odd thing, isn't it, being a TV star? You've got to make something that's not real appear real and natural. Was that where you struggled, that it wasn't you, it was you being something else?
No, it was literally being... I was really good at it, honest. I'd still be there now. But it wasn't that. It was literally, I thought, that's not the direction my life could... And I did think I could be all consuming. I thought once you got into it, which especially once you get into that children's circle and cycle, it's more or less employment for life, actually. And I just thought, no, that's that. I've got other things I want to do. What was I, 24 or something like that, and 23, 24, just took it in another direction.
Is that brave or is that stupid? Because once you're in a gig in show business, your intention is to keep it because I've got to hold on to the money and hold on to the career. To walk away from something is so brave and tenacious.
Yeah, and I did go back on the dole, and I haven't done badly since, though. I can't complain. I mean, thank God I wasn't lured in by the regular wage and stuff, and by working with really lovely people. That was the worst thing about turning them down, was that they'd been lovely to me. So it's just one of those... I don't even remember thinking about it very much. Do you know? It's like, I just remember thinking no. Powerfully, with all my guts. I thought, no, that's the wrong thing.
First, though, I want to find out about you, Russell, because you've had such a fantastic life and a fascinating life as well. You were born in Swansea, and I was lucky enough in one way to work there for a while. I worked on a station in Llanelli. Sorry if I spat all over you.
Llanelli, that's like the rival to Swansea. You're talking like Liverpool and Manchester now. It's like you were in foreign territory, you deserved everything you got. Sorry.
So it didn't work out for me there, but for you, it was really your grounding. It was where you became the person that you are today. Was it difficult, though, going into show business when you were born in Swansea, because you don't really put the two together, do you?
No, apart from Harry Seacombe and Bonnie Tyler and Ruth Maddock. The place is full of people.
All right, I take that back.
It's a fine tradition. There was no... It's very true, actually, that my eyes were really opened properly when I went to Manchester, where... there was a whole 40 years of Granada television, a real, proper, massive tradition of successful television, primetime television. And I really wished I'd grown up there, actually. I thought, nothing wrong with Swansea at all. I love it there. But for someone who wants to write and wants to write television, I wasn't hindered in a way because it takes you a long time to realise that you want to write television. I probably didn't really click properly until my 20s by the time after I'd left Swansea. So I didn't sit there feeling frustrated. And I had the most brilliant time there. I mean, good family and all that, lovely family and everything. But the best part of living in Swansea was this youth theatre that I belonged to. From like the age of 13 to 21. They couldn't get rid of me. I was 21 by the end. And like university holidays and things like that, I was still taking part in this youth theatre, run by a man called Godfrey Evans. That's what made me the man I am today, actually. That taught me it wasn't just having a laugh in leotards, sort of a youth theatre. It was disciplined, it did the classics, it was clever, it was hard work, it was ferocious, it was great friends I'm still friends with to this day. It's like, that was my childhood in a way. And that got me writing. They got us writing short plays and put them on and performed them to the public and worked on them, and that was the first door opening. I must have been about 16, I think, when I wrote my first thing, or maybe even 15. And God bless that youth theatre. Wonderful place.
Help me, though, with being an actor. You lose your personality, you lose your creative side because you have to interpret other people's words. You're so creative. How do you cope with, no, I think I know better than the director?
Well, you get to have the amount of power I've got now, actually. But you do go through a certain amount of that in the earlier years where you don't have that much power, but it's not about power. It's like, that's in all the stuff I've ever written, that's never been a massive problem because it's a very cooperative industry. It's a team industry. If you're working with a director who doesn't want to listen to what the writer's got to say, then he's an idiot. And actually, idiots don't last for long. It's got to be. It's like those directors will be weeded out. Equally, the writers who won't work with the directors and stuff like that. There's always a clash somewhere on the way, but it's a creative clash, So it takes you time, it takes you experience, it takes a long while, but I was always gobby, frankly. I look back at myself at early meetings. I remember myself as like being really quiet and wide-eyed, and I do. I remember this boy who sat there absorbing everything, being quiet, and then sometimes, and I think everyone's memory must be like this, sometimes I look back and remember what I was like in a certain meeting. I thought, oh my God, I was a nightmare. I just piped up all the time and stuck my oar in. I must have driven people mad and interfered, so it was always in me. Much as I'd like the modest version, I'm just gobby. Were
you seen as the new Tomorrow? Were you seen as the guy that they wanted to support? Were you just the annoying kid that they wanted to give a slap and told to shut up?
Oh, that's hard, isn't it? I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I was like, I'm sure I was, oh God, yes, the people who thought I was the annoying kid are now flashing before my eyes. And frankly, they're not working now. No, I was very lucky. I went to Granada during a golden period of its script development that I'm not sure it's in now, but when it was run by David Lidman, Tony Wood, and Carolyn Reynolds, who were, you stepped into an environment where they wanted the new Kid for Tomorrow, where they wanted the writers of tomorrow, and desperately sought them out and threw chances at you. Within about 2 years of being at Granada, I had my own soap opera, a sort of daytime soap opera called Revelations, which was the maddest show of the world, but within 2 years. It's like, it's not me forcing my way in there. They were, well, although I'm sure that's being disingenuous and I did my own bit of forcing, but I did, actually, yes, I did bang on doors and stuff like that. But once in there, that's what they want. I think people always think of television commissioners and television producers as the great evils, the men in suits who somehow want to stop everything. I always have found that the opposite is true, that they're the people, for a start, they're desperate to fill 24 hours a day of their channel, and they're only in the job because they want to make good work. So those stereotyped evil monsters I've literally never come across.
How do you know that you're the young, talented guy that's going to turn around television and not the annoying wacko who goes on X Factor with no ability and think that you're amazing?
I would be good on X Factor. I'd be so good. I think under 25s. I could do under 25s. I could get away with that. That's not that funny. Stop it. It's.
What would you say?
Do you know? I don't know, because I'm lucky and I'm not the one who's been turned away. So. I think, but with anything, you just have to keep going, and that is the classic advice to people who want to get into television, who want to start writing, which is to knock on doors, to get to know people, to use your contacts, and to keep knocking on the doors. And I think eventually, if you don't get in, you've got to realise it's going the wrong way. But that doesn't mean you failed, It's your life, so you could go and be a brilliant father. You can go and have a fantastic life, in all sorts of ways. That's not failure. That's just your life taking a different shape. mine took the shape I wanted it to. I never saw this coming, though. It's like I honestly thought it's just stage by stage. You never see this coming. All I wanted at the time when I went to Granada, I wanted to work on Coronation Street. That was my favourite soap opera. It still is. I still think it's wonderful. And that was my ambition. I just thought I want to get on that, and I thought I'll get on it and work on it for life.
You mentioned Coronation Street. So brilliant, so northern, so funny. And that's really what you are as well. You're a funny man. And was that one of the reasons that you wanted to write for it, because you could do the humour?
I never knew if I could do the humour, but I also think it's a very wise programme. I think it's more accurate in its depiction of life. And it's like I could have a 20-hour conversation with you about reality in drama, about what reality is. But basically, I think those less experienced in drama tend to think that drama means EastEnders, as the tragedy, the demotic, the troubles of life, the pain of life. Actually, I think people in real life are more like they are in Coronation Street, where you actually see characters having a laugh, no matter how bad their circumstances. I think it's actually true. In its size and its comedy, and sometimes it's panto comedy. Actually, life is like that sometimes. We've all got that aunt in a big spangly jumper. And that's what Coronation Street does, where everyone else thinks it's got to be drugs and rape and sex and problems and murder and death. Actually, most lives aren't full of that. And I think that's where Coronation Street is streets ahead of the others, in that it hits a proper rhythm of people's ordinary lives.
And we all know a Blanche, don't we, in real life?
Exactly. How vivid is she? She's just fantastic.
And that's the other thing about that soap that I love, is the characters. And you got to work with the soap. You did the Viva Las Vegas special.
I was a low spot on Coronation Street, to be honest. It's very terrible. Never watched that. I did 3 weeks storylining it as holiday relief for my friend Jan, who went off to Spain. And then I did one of those straight-to-video specials, which I wrote in 3 days, because the writer, well, I won't go into that, but the original writer wasn't on it, and it's absolutely terrible.
Oh, is it?
Oh, my God, it's terrible. Oh, my God, it's terrible. Oh, I'm sorry, anyone who bought that. I can say this now.
In what way is it terrible? Is it not how you wanted it to be? Did it not have the budget? Or was it the writer?
It's a knockabout comedy romp in Las Vegas with Jack and beer. It's not a normal episode of Coronation Street. It's not what Coronation Street is. That's why it was on DVD. It's balmy. There's some terrible jokes in there, some terrible farce. It's a good laugh.
Who's the most to blame then? You for writing it, or them for commissioning it?
Them for commissioning it.
Right.
Frankly, I saved their lives. It's like if I hadn't been down 3 days, they'd have been dead.
Do you become a great writer, or is it something you've got or you haven't got?
Oh, that's tricky. I mean, you get better as you go along. I've got to be arrogant enough to say, actually, in my very first script, there was. I mean, I do know my stuff, and I'm good at it, and I'm born to write. And the very first script I ever wrote got commissioned. So there's something in that, frankly. I know, I'm thinking of would-be writers listening to this.
You're a genius. That's what you're saying.
No, but it's like it actually got commissioned by 2 companies at once, by BBC and Granada, and there was a war between them. It was marvellous. So I sort of thought the signs were good then, actually. But every time you write something, then you think they won't. You think that's the last one. You think then they won't make the next one. So it's just stage by stage. But yeah, the more you write, the better you get. But that never stops. And that's what makes it.
And then we look at writing generally. How do you do it? Is it something that just comes to you from a divine power? Do you have to have lived the things that you are writing about? I find that hard to believe with Doctor Who, for example.
Big one,
Where does it come from?
Well, I don't believe in any divine power. It comes from your imagination, which is human and brilliant, which we've all got. Absolutely everyone's got that. It just depends in which direction you want to use it. It's very hard to talk about when you're a writer, because there's never a time I'm not writing. So I can't imagine not writing, so I can't imagine the opposite. It's just having a head full of ideas all the time. It's a very tricky balancing act, because the classic advice given to writers is write what you know, which is write about stuff you've been through, which is very good advice if you're starting out. And yeah, it's the most limiting advice, because it means everyone would write a script about someone with a mortgage going to work and getting married. That's a very basic pattern of life, and actually there's not that many dramas about that. That's pretty limiting. It means taking that and applying it to anything. It means that anyone can write a murder, because we've all been angry enough to write a murder. You've got to extrapolate what you've already experienced.
So it's dark thoughts then? It's those things that we wouldn't openly admit?
It's not just dark thoughts, because I think that's easy, because how much television is full of murder and death and disaster, and I don't like that. I've written that stuff, and I think it done well, it can be brilliant, but actually it's the cheap common denominator of television. It's how many murders a night? 2 or 3 murders a night? That's your staple fare. Actually, personally, I find looking for the opposite, looking for the happy ending in stuff is more interesting, partly because happy endings don't exist in real life. I think that's the point of fiction, in a way. It's like if you find the most classic couple in real life who are very much in love together, well, it's not going to last. One of them's going to die first. It's like life is terrible. And so actually I think the point of fiction is to end before one of them dies, to find that moment that sort of crystallizes it. I think that's a harder thing to write, and I think it's a more ambitious thing to aim for. It's not the only thing to aim for, but the disastrous end is almost too true to life and too easy.
And do you hear a conversation and a dialogue in your head that then you transfer to paper?
Yes, all the time. Yes, every second of every day, actually, all the time, literally, always. Even talking to you now, there's a separate little thrum.
Queer as Folk was one of those moments in TV where you did all of those things.
Yes.
Was that intentional?
No, it's funny because we never set out to shock. I think you're in a very hiding to nothing if you set out to shock. You might as well just cut a dog's head off live on air. It's like, and actually, but seriously, that was commissioned for late night Channel 4. Which isn't shocked. That is what late night Channel 4 is for, and I find it remarkable that stuff isn't on other channels as well. But the fact that then the programme echoed on from that and spread so far and became prime time and give us a gold album. I've got a gold album at home from the soundtrack. That's really quite bizarre. That's all beautiful, but incidental, actually. That wasn't what it was made for initially. So, I didn't find that surprising at all. That's what the channel's commissioned for. It wasn't about pushing boundaries. It was about being more honest and accurate. I was absolutely sick to the back teeth of every gay man I'd ever seen on television. And there had been a particularly appalling episode of EastEnders about 2 years before in which they went out and met the gays in this gay bar, and they all wore shiny jackets in a shiny bar and literally all talked about AIDS and HIV and stuff like that. And you sat there going, oh my God, that's not our lives. It's part of our lives, but that's all our lives are ever being shown us. And that kept me furious for a long time. That about a good 2 years. That was quite an engine behind what I was watching, but also I was given anger isn't enough. Actually, you just end up with a polemic, but I was given freedom. It was like Queer as Folk is also significantly the first time I worked with any sort of budget. Not that you need a budget to make good television, but I had been doing soaps and cheaper precinct dramas all set on one set and stuff like that. And actually, it's no wonder in Queer as Folk people drive about in cars so much, because that's me going, hey, look, no walls. Literally, it's absolute freedom. They are all running around like mad things. So there's other things going on there apart from gayness, and there's all sorts of explosions in my head going on that have got nothing to do with all the issues that are slapped on Queer as Folk. It was an enormous amount of freedom for me. Plus, we're finding a great producer called Nicola Schindler, and there's a joy in that and a freedom in that, and we're still friends and still hope to make more stuff together as well. So all sorts of vivid and exciting things were happening.
And did you think it would get the furore that it did in terms of the press? Do
you know what the truth is? It didn't get that much furore. It's always spoken out as a furore, and there wasn't that much. It's like most newspapers ignored it. If you bought the papers on, like all the weekend papers do the previews, it was in one paper, and it was promoted to death. Remember all the billboards and the adverts, the papers, one preview. Now I can't remember. It was either the Times or something. Everyone else ignored it. I think possibly some editors were like saying, well, we won't be provoked by all that hype, thank you very much. Nonetheless, they do react to hype. So I think a lot of people sidelined it in terms of like, it's a late night Channel 4 show. It might as well be a show about quilt making. It's just not relevant to our readers. So, and then once it went out, the radio stations and stuff like that went mad. There was like one page in the Daily Mail by that woman who's dead and I've forgotten her name. Linda Lee Potter. She deserves to have her name forgotten. That came out and she had a go at us, but there wasn't that much actually. It was all sorts of things kept happening. There was a lot of radio and television contact with it, but because then the sponsors dropped out and things like that. It was an exciting time. It was good.
And as for you personally, were you always confident in who you were? Because that programme was about celebrating being gay, not being depressed about it. Did you ever have a problem with your sexuality?
No, not particularly. Very lucky in that sense. Just slowly and gradually came out. I think I knew when I was about 11, really. It takes you a long time to put the right words in place. We don't actually do much about that. And then I left home at 18 and just became who I was. That lovely family, no problems at all. Really, very lucky in that sense. Although a lot of people are very lucky. I think when you say Queer as Folk celebration, I think part of that is that the opposite, the problem stories are told too often. The stories about teenagers being thrown out of home and stuff like that, that's actually very rare. We're sort of not allowed to say that in gay world because when it happens, it's a terrible problem. But actually, very, very rare. Most families it could be problematic, they could be difficult, they can be awkward, they're fine in the end, absolutely fine. So, nonetheless, you never stop growing up and you never stop being gay in a way, and I think writing the programme helped me in all sorts of ways. Think about things that I hadn't thought about before. Still do. That's a constant process. That's talking about thinking about life that never stops. And I'll write something like that again because I've thought new things and different things and disagree with myself ever since.
And it went to America, and if it was shocking here for some, it must have been even more shocking for them.
It was, I suppose. It went on a subscription channel there, they're called Showtime. But but again, they knew the hype they'd get by then, and they had the billboards in Times Square and stuff like that. It was nice, and it ran for 5 years. It's a great compliment.
We're back on your favourite local radio station. It's Alex Belfield talking to Russell T Davies, one of the biggest powers in TV today, and we have to talk Doctor Who, and I've got to admit to you, I don't know a lot about it. I like it, but I'm not one of these obsessive fans that knows the names of every single character, so forgive me for that.
It's been lovely talking. Goodbye.
I know. And how is it for you coming into that Doctor Who world? Were you as into it as the other people?
I was always. Even those 15 years it was off screen, I was bought Doctor Who magazine, buy the DVDs. I loved it, genuinely. You'd watch out for actors in other things on television that used to be in Doctor Who. I was hopelessly sold and lost on the whole thing, and thank God.
So what was more important then, getting the gig on Coronation Street or getting the gig on Doctor Who?
Oh, Doctor Who, any day. Any day. I never got the gig on Coronation Street in the end. I left Granada. But and if I'd stayed at Granada, I wouldn't be doing Doctor Who, so this is the best thing.
And did you leave Granada, or were you pushed? How did that work?
I went in the end. I had other things to do. I just moved on. And
Viva Las Vegas was where it stopped, was it? It's as simple as that.
It could have been.
You've written this book with Benjamin Cook, and what a beautifully illustrated book this is. Congratulations to both of you. Benjamin, tell me your story. How do you know him then?
I've interviewed Russell over the last 3 or 4 years a number of times through my work for Doctor Who magazine and Radio Times magazine. February 2007, I approached Russell with the idea of doing, then it was going to be a magazine article, and it turned into a whole book of a sort of a year-long correspondence inside Russell T Davies's head.
And we're not talking some flimsy article. We're talking a big, thick, whopping, great big book.
It's massive.
For every anorak that loves Doctor Who, this is exactly what they've been waiting for.
I hope so, because they deserve it. I also wanted Doctor Who to have a book that no other show has got. Actually, they've all those science fiction shows. They've got their encyclopedias. They've got behind-the-scenes sort of stuff. There's never been a book like this. And Doctor Who fans deserve this because they're the best.
I've got a million questions for you, Doctor Who, that the fans want answering. Firstly, are there infinite ideas in your head for this programme? I know you've walked away from it now, and we'll get to that in a bit. Is it impossible to stop thinking of new things? Because you can do exactly what you like with Doctor Who, can't you? Take it where you want.
You're right, actually. Even now I'm going, I still think of ideas that I would do if I was staying. I've never admitted that before, but I do. I think, that'd be a good story, or that'd be a good setting, or that'd be a good character. So I'll probably just keep doing that. For
Are you inclined to pass those on to your successor?
No, he's full of ideas. He doesn't need me chipping in and going, by the way, there's something I forgot.
And how lucky were you to get the cast you did? Because it worked very well. You'd worked with Chris Eccleston before. Is it a team effort with a programme like that, or really will the writing stand for itself?
Oh, it's all about the writing, in my opinion. But no, seriously, it's a massive team. It's hundreds of people all pulling together, and it's absolutely unique. I've been very happy in all the productions I've ever worked in, but Doctor Who is loved by the people who make it. I think it's the kids. You get kids watching it, and you get kids responding. You get kids loving it, and that makes the people going into work harder. It really does. That's a massive responsibility. You never want to let anyone down.
And Ben, are you a complete fan? Do you know everything since the creation of Doctor Who? How big a fan are you?
I wouldn't say everything. That would be quite a claim. I never watched the original show back in the 80s. I am old enough but it sort of finished when I was sort of about 7 years old. But then I got into it a bit later, and a huge fan of the new show, of course. But I would say that because he sat right next to me.
And did he do a good job? Forget that Russell's there. We'll ignore him for a moment.
Disappear.
Did he do a good job with this, bringing it back? How do you feel as a guy who's seen the old stuff and loves it?
Well, I think it's easy to forget what a risk it was. And actually, Russell's always taken risks. Following Queer as Folk with something like Bob and Rose, where you've got a gay man falling in love with a woman, it was a huge risk as the gay writer. And the same with Doctor Who. It was, I think, back in sort of 2003, 2004, it was perhaps considered by a lot of people as a bit of a joke, unfairly, but nonetheless it was. And Russell brought it back and has turned it into, I think he would acknowledge even, that a bigger success than anybody anticipated. But nonetheless, a hell of a risk, and as such has done an amazing job.
And do you kind of thrive on that? Do you like the fact that you were taking on something that really perhaps shouldn't have been touched, shouldn't have been brought back, and if it's done badly, you were going to be slated and probably finished?
I do like it when people say that's not going to work. I love that. I absolutely love it. And I know what to do to make things work. It doesn't always happen.
And that John Barrowman, I worked with him last year on an hour special. He's
shy.
stuck raving bonkers, isn't he?
He's shy and retired. I'm surprised you remember him. Like, he's so quiet in the background.
First though, Russell, I just want to talk to you about Doctor Who generally, because going into that, did it ever concern you that your words maybe weren't as important as the visual spectacular that the show has to be?
I think writing is pictures as well. I think a lot of people forget that. Whenever there's a great picture on screen, people go, "Oh, isn't the director marvellous?" You go, "The writer put that in the first place. Thank you very much." And I do think that Doctor Who could be told in other ways, easily. It's like we did a story last year that had no monsters, no special effects. It was called Midnight, where everyone's just trapped in one room. That was very effective. We got like 8 million viewers for that. However, I do think it's my choice that I think Doctor Who is big pictures. I think it's a big pictorial show, and I think it's fascinating and innovative for writers in this country to write in pictures. We don't often get a chance to do that. Budgets normally mean you're writing scenes between two people in the kitchen. So I have loved that. That's been my absolute favourite thing about writing it, and I think that's one of the unique things about the show. I think it's part of its success. I'm really proud of that.
Tell me about the locations as well. I know you went to Gloucester, to the cathedral, to film there. You go all over the country looking for places you want to find. Is that important as well?
We had a magnificent time in Gloucester because it gave us a location for 1851. It's actually doubling as London in 1851 for this year's Doctor Who special. So it should be, Gloucester should be covered in snow and looking all romantic and beautiful on Christmas Day on BBC One.
And they looked after you, did they?
They were marvellous. We had hundreds of people. It was the biggest turnout we've ever had. It was like crowd control in the end. We travel very rarely. People think we travel all over the place because it looks so good. The only great trip we ever had was a trip to Rome to film a Pompeii episode, and I didn't go, and Ben Cook did.
I went. It was fantastic, yeah. A few days in the sun while you were sat at home in Cardiff.
He was like the Radio Times reporter. It was outrageous.
So how does that work then? You're the executive producer, but you don't bother turning up?
No, I say we're not paying for my airfare. I'm the one saying there's no need for that man there. Cancel the flight.
And you're like the biggest tourist attraction now in Cardiff, aren't you? People literally come to see you film.
I stand on a plinth and on between Tuesdays between 2 and 4 and I'm worshipped. But it's like they come to see the Torchwood Tower, and there's like, it's good, you know, it's not just fiction, this thing, it's good business. It brings money into the town, brings jobs into the town, gets Wales on screen. It's a fantastic business opportunity, the whole thing.
Tell me what this means then, executive producer. Does that mean that you're just over everything and what you say goes?
It does mean I'm over everything. It means what you say goes is too simple because it's collaborative. It's like you're employing the people you love and trust, and you're listening to their opinion. So it's never come down to like a final vote on something. It's constant collaboration all the time, talking to people. And I often think of it as transmitting, actually. I just transmit what I think the programme should be, meaning the tone of every episode and the feel of it, even going down to the textures and the colours of it. It's like it's where drama goes wrong and where most drama goes wrong, and actually where most drama is bland, is because everyone's got a slightly different opinion of what's happening on the page. And actually you do need to be a bit ruthless and a bit Stalinist with that and make sure everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, because then you get a beautiful choir. See what I'm like with metaphors? I'm just marvellous with them today. But
you're tremendous, aren't you? Let's face it. Just all round. Congratulations to you. You're so talented and you're so great at what you do and you're respected for it, and you can't fake it. You can't be in the business as long as you have, especially dipping your toes into things like Doctor Who, because they won't forgive you. Congratulations on the OBE as well. That's nice.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's exciting. That's how bizarre.
How does that feel then to have an OBE?
I tell you how it feels. You get 3 tickets and I got 4 people who want to go. It's a living nightmare. And last night I threw out my own father. Let's not go into that.
You can't do that.
Stop.
So who's more important then? The 3 people more important than your father?
Open the debate. It's been weeks of warfare. Blood has been shed, and now I've axed someone.
Dear. I can feel this being a very difficult Christmas for you.
Yeah, less of the nice man.
Russell T Davies, thank you very much. And Benjamin Cook, congratulations on this new book. It's called The Writer's Tale. It's in your stores now. It's beautifully illustrated. And if you are into Russell T Davies or you're into Doctor Who, you're just going to love it. And you give tips and all kinds of things on the writing and behind the scenes. So it's a great book for Christmas. Thank you guys for talking to me.